southern Vietnam and the Vietnam War, now just Vietnam today. Of course, as Americans got into cocaine in the 60s and 70s, the big banks publicly took over and set up monopolies in Central and South America, and the large central banks that laundered the money and were run by the CIA and controlled by those very private families also continued that monopoly. Now, and I'm simplifying this, but historically it's all on record. It came out in the 80s that the ingredients and the popularization and the recipe for crack cocaine was distributed by drug dealers in the employ of the CIA, who were instructed to launder the money in the billions a day, even in the 1980s. It was over $300 billion a year, into select Western banks: Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, others, all on record. Federal Reserve banks going back into the 70s, constantly caught, filled with narcotics money in the tens of billions. Endless AP, Reuters articles. Any reporter listening and could just search Federal Reserve Bank laundered drug money, and you'll see it, or Wachovia laundered drug money, or Wells Fargo, or Bank of America, or Goldman Sachs, or J.P. Morgan. I mean, it just came out, as you know, last year that Wells Fargo and Wachovia, $370+ billion. They were running the aircraft, leasing the aircraft, CIA aircraft crashing in Mexico, 4 tons of pure cocaine coming from the source, on and on and on and on, and no U.S. government investigation, no Mexican government investigation over any of this. So you're saying, yes, Alex, we know that. Well, a lot of new listeners don't know this history. Why do they make drugs illegal? We have a gangster culture. For 9 years, we had prohibition in this country in the 20s. The crime rate more than tripled. Alcoholism more than tripled. The profits of organized crime, Jewish, WASP, Irish, Italian, and others, went up over 400%. It is estimated by historical books and congressional investigations that people like Lucky Luciano, people like Bugsy Siegel, people like Al Capone were making $100 million per week apiece, and that was in 1920s money. The Rockefellers were involved. Joe Kennedy controlled large portions of the operation. This is how America runs and operates. There was a U.S. government contract with a bottled water company out of Arkansas. This is all in Mainline History Center in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I still haven't done that news report with all the video footage I shot up there a month ago, but it's coming. Where the U.S. government on its trains would fill the big water bottles, the types that go on the water cooler, the types that, go there in the office. And in that was pure, clear moonshine shipped on U.S. government trains all over the country, quote, as the official water of the federal government. The G-men and others, the very one, J. Edgar Hoover, who told Congress in the 50s that it was a conspiracy theory, that's a quote, and that organized crime didn't exist. You can pull up the video clip online. You can pull up the news articles, because he was a cross-dresser, that they, homosexual, that they were blackmailing the entire time. That's why they hired him, saying there is no organized crime while U.S. government trains were full of moonshine. This is how these people operate. Mountain Valley Springs, the company, if you want to look it up. By the way, it's a great water, actually. We actually have it at the office ourselves, but it's not the moonshine type. So all of this is happening. This is a gangster, organized crime, hardcore bankster situation. The Kennedys, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Italian mafia. Now, by the 50s, and I'm getting to the new breaking stuff in Mexico here in a minute, but you got to know the past to know the present. By the 50s, the Italian mafia had become second most powerful to the WASP and Jewish mafia that were teamed up with the Irish as well. All of those mafias were bigger than the Italian mafia, but the Italian mafia had a war and started killing Jews, WASP, Irish, and others. So those groups teamed up with the news media and ran a propaganda blitz and said there is a mafia, but they only busted with the FBI and the state police, that famous meeting in the farmhouse of the La Cosa Nostra. And they said, okay, it's true. There is organized crime. It's Italians. And they basically wiped them out. The Italians have never been the same. They're little bitty compared to what they were. Before, they were at the New World Order table. They sent in a Rockefeller to take over Arkansas and shut down all the whore operations, all the gambling, except if it was Rockefeller. So they went in and took it over, mowed people down by the thousands, huge wars, state police sent in, Fed G-men who'd been running the drugs, running the liquor forever. Now, their drug war was needed because alcohol prohibition was over. People figured out it created war on the streets, crime, energized criminals, corrupted police, so they legalized alcohol again. Right at the same time, the year after, they criminalized narcotics, including marijuana, so that they have something new to go after. Now, let's move forward to the 21st century. We told you all this with Selica Castile and others 6 years ago, Gary Webb before they killed him, Freeway Ricky Ross from prison. We gave you all the facts and said they're going to put in Felipe Calderon. They're going to launch a war. No longer are they going to be allowed to operate more than a dozen major cartels that, as long as they launder their money through U.S. globalist or British banks, British Virgin Islands, as long as you laundered through them, everything was okay. No longer. A deal's been made. 10,000 Los Zetas have been trained in the decade before at Fort Benning, Georgia, and Fort Bragg. This is all public, to go in and take over the East Coast and up through the border areas. But Sinaloa, the other big dominant group that's on the East Coast, and there's also the cartel, as it's known, and then there's at least still 5 other, depending on how you look at it, subgroups. And they're all killing each other. The Mexican government has the tax money. It's the main organizer. It runs drugs itself and is constantly caught. And so it's a total free-for-all. It comes out in Fast and Furious. I'm going to get to the new stuff here in a minute. This is so bombshell. The new information comes out in federal court when the Mexican government ships a Sinaloa number 2 guy up to Chicago for federal trial. He comes in and says, national security, for 5.5 years, we're allowed to ship in unlimited tonnage through the U.S. border, and we are given guns by the ATF. And that's why it then came out. It wasn't just gun shops ordered to sell guns to people to track them. That was the cover to just blame the Second Amendment. That was one layer of the onion. The big layer, the key core layer, was in one shipment alone now in federal court, 2,000 weapons, including a lot of them fully auto, confiscated by ATF, shipped directly to Sinaloa in a double cross, in a balance of power. The globalists are all about divide and conquer against their own Los Zetas, who, even though they were trained at Fort Benning, Georgia, and Selica Castile, they tried to recruit him. He was a military trainer all over Latin America, former DEA. He said no. This is 6 years ago on my show. He was told, and others we talked to, that this whole war was coming. He told you this war was coming to consolidate it down to one cartel that works for the private Federal Reserve, and that Calderon would be put in. But now Zetas at many levels, because their whole leadership's been wiped out. Their average age of their leaders now is about 25. They just caught the number 2 guy, 32 years old, yesterday, for firebombing and blowing up that casino that wouldn't pay protection money and cutting all the heads off. I mean, this is what's going on. 40,000+ dead in 3 years. Genocide. Ghost town on the Texas border. I'm down here right now. Beautiful hotels everywhere. Nobody in them. I talked to locals. They say about 1/3 of the people come down here that used to, even during peak times. I mean, it is a ghost town down here. Nothing. No one is here but rich Mexicans who are all wearing USA shirts saying, we like the USA. Mexico has imploded. Mexico's a failed state, but that's coming up. Continuing here, ladies and gentlemen, about the total breakdown and failure of society by design by the social engineers. So we told you 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, all this was coming. We told you 3 years ago, Obama would blame the Second Amendment. We told you all of this was unfolding. Now they have got Sinaloa being given weapons, shipping their cocaine in. They've got Zeta killers that are really Sinaloa running around chopping their heads off. And you've got, here's the key, you've got conscription going on. And then I've got breaking news about invasions of the U.S. You heard me right. Breaking news. Tell everybody you know to tune in. I'm not even a very good talk show host. I should have said this at the very start of the show. But I tend to cover the sub-issues first. I should have told you day one, there was a helicopter Mexican drug cartel attack 8 days ago. Well, what's the Friday before last? 9 days ago in the town of Rio Grande City, just a few miles from where I'm at, where the high school junior varsity football game had to basically get shut down with machine gun fire helicopters, Mexican troops, many miles. In fact, Richard, look up, last night I had it, but look up how far away that sports stadium is from the border. This is many miles inside, total hell, but not on TV, not on radio, not in print, because the whole local news has been told, you talk about it, you're dead. And a few miles from that over the border, the administrative editor of the Nuevo Laredo newspaper, we'll put this on screen, were hung for putting out a Twitter talking about what cartels are doing. In Nuevo Laredo, across the border, they won't even talk about it when their own families are killed. Most nights, everybody sleeps on mattresses on the floor because the bullets are shooting through. It's total genocide. And the cartels come to you and they say, pick a side, and they line up whole families in the street and just shoot them. 40,000 is probably a low number. 60,000 died in 10 years of the Vietnam War. We're talking about, I don't know, what's 40+ thousand divided into 3 years? We're talking about 13,000, 12,000 or more a year that we know of, 5,000 on the U.S. side, so that's 45,000 dead. There's been car bombs and truck bombs down here where I'm at, and no one will talk in America. The intimidation has already begun. We've got news articles here where the cartels are now recruiting high schoolers in Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth. The police are all scared. And you heard Dr. Pachenik with his inside sources talking about it on the show last week. The Austin, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas police will not even do anything about it. America has got its legs, basically, the tail between the legs, absolutely in total abject fear, with the CIA running the entire operation, a psych warfare program to destabilize Mexico, wage a total war over the $500 billion a year conservatively coming up into the United States through it. You've got reporters in the U.S., newspapers have been attacked here, afraid to talk about it. You've got Mexican troops operating, huge firefights going on every other night. You've got giant FEMA camps right down the road from where I'm at. Let me give you the names of those. The Bayview Detention Center, the Tent City in Raymondsville. You've got drug flights coming into these bases at night. These camps are just a cover for drug flights. You've got special forces all over the place. You've got Mexican troops in unmarked uniforms being flown in, firefights right by the high schools, everyone completely scared. And here's the key. They line up now, and now it started on the U.S. side. They come to your door and they say, are you going to join the cartel? Are you going to join Los Zetas? Or are you going to join Sinaloa? And if you don't decide to join right there, they just line you up and shoot you. And now it's begun here. And Texans come down and they fish and they're killed and disappear, or they're kidnapped, or they get on their jet ski and the Mexican cartel comes right up and shoots them right in the head on Falcon Lake, and our own media says it's not true, and then it turns out it was. Then the Mexican police go to investigate and they chop their heads off. The truth is, the globalists have created something they can't even control, because the people worship the Grim Reaper now down in Mexico. They all tattoo the skinny one. Richard, how do you say that in, I forget her name, and it's a female Grim Reaper. How do you say that in Spanish? Point is, it's all coming up. Total bedlam. We're going to break it down. Breaking news. Stay with us.
Alex Jones. Did you know that the global elite are now storing non-hybrid seeds in secret storage vaults near the Arctic Circle? Did you know that in a real meltdown, non-hybrid seeds can become more valuable than silver or gold? It's true. Seeds have outperformed even gold and silver before in this country, and it's possible that could even happen again. So our friends at Solutions from Science have put together the perfect mix of non-hybrid seeds. They call it a survival seed bank, and it can produce an endless supply of nutrient-dense food for you and your family. And here's the best part. These seeds have not been genetically modified in any way, and you actually get enough seeds to plant a full-acre crisis garden. So visit them today at survivalseedbank.com. That's survivalseedbank.com, or give them a call at 877-327-0365. That's 877-327-0365. Remember, in a real crisis, non-hybrid seeds are the ultimate barter item. This is Alex Jones for Survival Seed Bank.